Hello network engineers, I hope you guys are doing great, right? So today we are going to discuss about the CCIE Enterprise Blueprint, what topics we are going to cover in this training, right? So this is the blueprint of the Cisco website, right? This is the blueprint on the Cisco website where you can see that this is the exam topics and this is we have a version 1.1, the practical exam topics and study guide. Now let me tell you about this part. If you're planning for the CCIE Enterprise certification, then these topics are very important for you. Even if you're planning for the interview session, right, then these topics are very important for you. So this training is going to cover the entire blueprint. What we are going to cover additionally, that we'll talk about it. So let's focus on the blueprint right now. So this is the CCIE Enterprise version 1.1 and this is the exam description. Let me tell you that how this exam is gonna categorize. So this exam is gonna categorize in the two modules, module 1 and the module 2. So module 1 we have a design, in the module 2 we have a configuration part that we can easily call as a deploy part. In the module 1 we have a design, that's 3 hours of the exam. The module 2, that's a deploy, it's 5 hours of the exam. Eventually, to get the magic number, the CCIE number, you need to pass the both exam, the module 1 and the module 2 as well. Now, taking the training, right, it's not mandatory to give the exam. It's not like that. If you want to give the exam, if you want to wish to give the exam, you can give it, but it's not mandatory to give the exam. Let's example, sometimes what happen, company require, okay, I need a CCIE certified guy, right? So can you please give the CCIE exam? In that case, you can go for the exam. If you're planning to, get a good, exposure in the market, then go with the CCIE exam. But taking the exam, it's not mandatory part. It's just optional. It's just your base. Karte na sone pe suhaga. It's your base. If you want to give, you can give it. Now, let's see what are the topics we have, right? So this CCIE exam blueprint is categorized in the 5 section, right? You can see that. Let me take some color over here, the mark. So the first we have a 1.0 is a network infrastructure, right? Then we have a software defined infrastructure. Then we have a transport technology. We have a infrastructure security and the services and the automation part. So the first part that you see over here, it's a 30% we have, right? And then SDN we have a 25%. The transport technology and solution we have a 15% and the 15% we have a security and the automation we have a 50%. The major part, if you see over here, the 30% that we have a L2 and L3 technology, right? The switching protocols and the routing protocols has a lot of weightage in the CCIE Enterprise certification. Now let's see what are the topics we have over here, right? So if I'm going to open this guy, 30%. So if you see that we have the first thing, we have a switch campus, right? The switch campus is all about that how you can manage the switching environment in your network, right? Like for example, MAC address table buildup, error discovery recovery, L2MTU, the layer 2 protocols like a CDP and LDP, UDLD, right? These topics are pretty important for the CCIE exam as well. Not even the CCIE exam, even for the production perspective. The next we have, right, if you see that we have a VLAN technology. In the VLAN, we're going to talk about the access port, right? Access port, trunk port, native VLAN, how we can do the manual VLAN pruning. So we have 2 ways that you can prune the VLAN, and that's very important in the production as well, right? So one we have a static one we have a dynamic one. So this is going to talk about the manual, but in our training we'll talk about the dynamic mechanism as well. Then after that, if you see, we have how we can configure the normal range of VLAN, extended VLANs. Then we have some small topic of the voice VLAN as well, right? Then after that, once we have done with the VLAN, right? So if you see that they have not mentioned in the VLAN the BTP protocol, but we'll cover the BTP over here as well, right? The BTP, the private VLAN concept and the VLAN security, how you can improve the security under the VLAN network. Then then we have a ether channel part. In the ether channel, like, let's example, you have a switch right now, and if this link goes down, there's no other ways to send the traffic, right? So you can add the multiple links over here, right? That concept is called the ether channel, and you can deploy this ether channel in the 2 ways. Either you can go with the static mechanism, or either you can go with the dynamic mechanism, which is the LSCP protocol and the PAGP. Here we'll talk about the layer 2 and layer 3 load balancing, right? And what happen if you're gonna have a misconfiguration in the ether channel, right? Then you can use the guard option over here. Once we have done this part, right, then we have a spanning tree protocol, which is a backbone of the enterprise network, because you have a layer 2 loop in your network, right? So to prevent the layer 2 loop, we have a spanning tree protocol. On the layer 3, of course, we have a TTL concept, so that preventing the loop on the layer 3. But on the layer 2, we don't have a TTL concept. So if you want to prevent the loop on the layer 2 network, you have to go with the spanning tree protocol, which is by default enabled. So we have multiple flavors over here. You can see that we have a flavors like a PVST, rapid PVST, and the MSTP. How we can, twin the cost and the timers as well. These are the security features that you're going to implement on the spanning tree and the loop guard and the root guard as well. Apart from this thing, right, we are also going to talk about the uplink fast and the backbone fast, which is a very important topic for the interview perspective, not for the examination, but the interview. Then I'll coming back to the routing concept over here. In the routing concept, if you see that, we have a concept of how we can manipulate the ADs, like a static routing, the policy-based routing, the VRF, right? The VRF Lite is a very good example. So you can, create the multiple virtual router with the help of VRF, depend on the customer and depend on the requirement as well. So think about this way. This is the service provider router, and this service provider router is providing the service to the different customer. And I want that all the 4 customers are segregated to each other. Cust 1 should not talk to the Cust 2, and Cust 2 should not talk to the Cust 3, and so on. So in that case, you can go with the VRF concept. So on the layer 3, we have a VRF. On the layer 2, we have a concept of the VLAN. All done this part, then we have to go with the route linking between the VRF. Of course, sometimes what happened, you provide the communication between the 2 customers. Think about the customer 1 has some server, and customer 2 wants to access some file from customer 1 server, right? In that case, you can leak the route from one VRF to the another VRF. Then we have a route filtering between all the routing protocols. Sometimes you have an unwanted route in the routing table, you have to filter it. Then we have a redistribution between all the routing protocol, like a BGP, AGRP, OSPF, and static, right? That's when you do the migration between the 2 companies, and even when you providing the connectivity between the customer to the service provider, and you are running with a different routing protocol, right? You have to go with the redistribution. Simple mechanism routing protocol authentication that you have already known in the CCNA part. The BFD, that's a important concept for the production and production interview and the exam perspective. And then finally we have a L3 MTU. So once we have done with this part, right, the routing concept, we have a section of the EIGRP protocol. A lot of things in the EIGRP, right? What is EIGRP? What are the packet types of the EIGRP? What are the neighbor state of the EIGRP? What are the features of the EIGRP we have, like EIGRP stub, right? EIGRP, what we call the OTP over here. I think so OTP is not there, right? They removed that one. Yeah, it looks like OTP is not there. So we'll also cover the OTP part over the top, EIGRP over the top. That's a interesting topic. So once you're going to learn this EIGRP over the top, then trust me, you will forget the DMVPN. So a lot of things we have, like how we can do the RD, FD, feasibility condition, classic metric and the wide metric. That's a classic mode and the name mode. Then we have packet types, stuck in active scenario, graceful shutdown, right? It's one of the good mechanism, right, to provide the, what we call, immediately shut down the neighbor instead of waiting for the 15 seconds. Then we have a query progression boundaries, how we can, stop, or we can put the boundary for the query packet. Multiple mechanism we have, like you can deploy the EIGRP stub, you can go with the summarization, right? That's another good example why you guys are doing the summarization. That's all, right? And apart from this thing, we have a leak map concept, how we can leak the route with summary route, and we have a leak map concept with the EIGRP stub as well. So leaking is a very important topic, right? For example, you have this route. Oh, come on. And 2.0 and 3.0, and you want to send a summary route. Let's example. And so this is a summary route will be present in the routing table, but I also want the 2.0/24 should be there in the routing table. In that case, what happens? You can perform the route linking, right? Why we are doing this thing, we'll talk about in the training, right? Because it's a very big topic, right? I'll just give you the quick explanation for this one. Like, if you longest prefix match rule, like if you're doing that, for example, I want that whenever the packet comes for the 2.0 subnet, right, then the packet should be go by the 2.0 subnet one, not by the summary route. In that case, you can perform the linking. But there's a lot of scenarios comes in the picture. Then we have a OSPF protocol. OSPF has the two versions we are using in the market right now, the version 2 and version 3. We'll talk about how, whatever the adjacency parameters, whatever the neighborship parameter. One more thing, neighborship and adjacency, both are different. Then we'll talk about the network types, area types. We have multiple types of network, like a point-to-point, point-to-multipoint, a broadcast and non-broadcast. Then we have a area type is the stub area and NSA area. Path preference is the one of the good one. That's, I remember that, right? When I gave my CCIE exam, on that time also it was there, right? Path preference is something like that. Multiple types of route. We have OIA, E1 and E2, N1 and N2, right? So O route is more preferred than the OIA. E1 route is more preferred than the E2 route. That's how the path preference comes in the picture. It's majorly used in the primary and secondary path, situation. Then we have a same general operation like a graceful shutdown and the TTL security mechanism. Then after that, we have how we can perform the matrix, LSA throttling, and SPF tuning. These are the basically improving the performance of the OSPF protocol. Stub router one is a good example, right? For example, if you want to perform the upgradation of the router and you want that this router should not be a transit, that's a good example of the stub router. Prefix separation, it's improving the OSPF performance, right? Not having the lot of database in the LSDB table, right? Because you want to ping from end to end, right? Why do I care about the transit link data? That's, you can use the prefix separation. Oh my God, BGP. A lot of things, right? The BGP, of course, we'll talk about how we can form the neighborship and how we can configure the IBGP, BGP. We have a peer group concept, right? And then we have a template concept, active and passive, the parameter, right? Timers we have, dynamic neighborship we have, right? Then 4-byte. I think the dynamic neighborship is also part of the CCNP, right? 4-byte of AS number also part of the CCNP, and the private AS number concept. So private AS number concept, here is a lot of things we are going to discuss. It's not a basic part. A lot of things we have over here, right? Private 4-byte of AS number has a concept of the trans AS. Path selection, we have an attribute, BGP path selection algorithm, and the load balancing. Apart from this thing, we are also going to add the AIGP, right? That's a new attribute we have in the BGP. Routing policy, how we can make a conditional advertisement and the route, on-one route filtering, extended communities, and the multi-homing, right? These are the good topic for the policy perspective, right? Whenever the policy things comes in the picture, you think about you're going to either manipulate and do the route filtering. Path manipulation, we have local ACE allow ACE in the remove private ACE. That's a good concept, right? ACE path prepending and the regular expression, that's the most confusing topic for the most of the network engineers, right? But we'll make it easy. It's not a hard one. And of course, the local ACE, right? I remember that when I see this keyword, right? The local ACE, 1 year back, there was a guy who called me that, hey, there's a lot of scenarios comes over here in the local ACE, and people get confused, right, in the interview as well. But I'll make that scenario in the training, okay, don't worry. Then we have a route reflector, a good topic for the CCIE perspective and the aggregation ACE. Oh my God, they removed that configuration. It was there. So the configuration is not there, right, in the BGP. 3 ways that we have to overcome the IBGP split Trojan rule, right? One, we have a full mesh. Second, we have a route reflector, and third, we have configuration. So they remove the configuration, but it is a great topic, right? But don't worry, we'll discuss the configuration in the training as well. So this blueprint is according to the CCIE lab exam perspective, but our training is not all about the CCIE lab exam perspective. It's all about the production perspective as well, right? And configuration we are using in the production. I personally troubleshoot 1 and 2 times, right? So it's there. Okay, we have a multicast, an important topic. Everything is happening through the multicast only, right? Netflix, live matches, everything is happening through the multicast. So we have a protocol like for the LAN protocol, we have a IGMP and IGMP version 3, 2 and 3. We'll talk about the version 1 as well. Then we have a snooping, courier and the IGMP filter. MLD is the, what do we call, how do I say that? IGMP is for the IPv4 and MLD is for the IPv6. Then we can see the how we can prevent the loop in the Acha. Okay, so after the 5 minutes we need to record again, right? कितने देर के लिए? मुझे अभी बाकी रिकॉर्ड करना था, 10 मिनट मुझे आ जाएगी. ठीक है. So we have a reverse path forwarding check, that's a loop prevention, right? In the PIM multicasting. Then we have a lot of flavors of the PIM. Sparse mode, they don't have a oh my god, they remove the dense mode as well. So we do the dense mode as well in the lab. Static RP, VSR auto RP, right? We have a MSDP also, like then we can also perform the filtering for the multicasting and the multicast multipath, right? A lot of things we have to cover in the PIM, right? But many of the things they have removed it, but don't worry about that. We'll cover that part, like a dense mode, a sparse and dense mode, and of course that, okay, MSDP is already there, that's fine, no problem. Then after that we have a 2.0. This is the till this point we have covered the 30%, right, of the exam perspective. SDN, the software defined infrastructure, we have a concept of the first of all SDXS. In SDXS, if you see, right, we have a underlay behavior. Then we have a automation and the PNP, right, how we can perform the discovery of the devices, how we can perform the policy in the SDA environment, right? Then we'll talk about the how the LIPS is going to work, how the VXLAN is going to work, right? Whatever the Cisco TrustSec policy plane and the L2 and the native multicast as well. After that, we have fabric design, how we can deploy the SDXS in the single site and the multi-site environment, and the fabric deployment, right? How you can deploy your fabric, right, in the SDA environment. Lot of sections we have it, right? The fabric border handoff, that's going to talk about the peer device and the layer 2 border handoff. Segmentation, that's not a big, of course, segmentation is improving the security. So not SDA, even everywhere, right? And like I see the SDN technology like SD-WAN, SDXS and ACI, right? Everywhere we have a good segmentation. I'm so sorry. Cisco SD-WAN, we have a controller like multiple types of controller. We have like a vManage, v1 and vSmart, that's a Webtela. But in exam, you will get the Catalyst one, right? And in training, we'll talk about the Webtela and Catalyst both, right? And then we have SD-WAN overlay behavior, how we can perform the clouds, edge deployment, how we can perform the WAN edge deployment. The greenfield and brownfield, this is the good terminology. Then we have our transport configuration. After that, we are going to talk about the OMP protocol. That's a good protocol for the SD-WAN, right? How we can do the IPsec key management, how we can do the route aggregation and redistribution, right? So, I remember that there was a guy who went for the exam. He told me that there's a aggregation is also, important topic for the SD-WAN. So additional feature like a BGP is path propagation and SDN integration, right? And we have a template like 3 types of template we have. The CLI feature and device template. Feature is for every features we have a separate template, like a OSPF we have a separate, PIGRP we have a separate, and interface we have a separate. But eventually these 3 templates are going to merge into the single one, that's called the device template we have. Centralized policy, like a data policy, application aware routing and control policy. Localized, we have an access list and the route policy. Oh my god. So with the help of this one, right, we can do the route filtering at the particular location, a particular site. So finally we have a 3.0, the transport technology and solution, right? Yeah, of course, right? This one is going to contains the MPLS VPN section. The VPN is going to include your IPsec VPN, GRE, MGRE, and the DMVPN phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Apart from this thing, we need to also cover that how we can configure the DMVPN over the IPsec as well, right? Then once we have done this thing, right, so we are going to cover the DMVPN phase 3 with the dual hub and the single hub as well. And of course, once we have done this part, then we can go with the L3 VPN, that VPN v4 and VPN v6. That's my MPLS L3 VPN. That's we're gonna talk about like how we can perform the LDP operation, right? We can also see that behavior of the TDP as well, and a lot of scenarios comes over here. A lot of multiple scenarios. Almost this, I think so. This transport technology is a 15% only, but in our training, I personally feel that it will take the around 50 to 60 hours of the session, right, on this topic, right? It's a great section we have it over here. Once we have done this part, right, then we can go with the infrastructure security and services, where we're going to talk about how we can deploy the COOPE, the control plane policy and the protection. Then we have a AAA, right, authentication, authorization and accounting. Once we have done this two part, right, we're going to talk about the how we can configure the VACL. These are the VLAN part, the VACL, storm control, the DSCP snooping and the DSCP option 82. The IP source guard, DIA, dynamic RP inspection, the port security. These are the complete security features that you're going to implement on the layer 2, right? Right, so like a port security is a part of the layer 2, dynamic RP inspection is a part of the layer 2, IP source guard you can implement, then DSCP snooping, DSCP option 82, storm control, the VACL, right? Once we have done this part, then we can go with the router security feature, where we can talk about the URPF and the access list. Then finally we have IPv6, where we're going to talk about how we can do the DSCP guard, RA guard, ND inspection and a lot of section in the IPv6. So let me tell you that once we are going to cover the IPv4 regarding all the routing protocols like OSPF, HGRP, BGP, MPLS, then once we have done all this part, then we'll come to the IPv6. Then we have a device management, how we can access the device through the netcom, RESTcom, SSH and VTY. Then we have some logging like SNMP and the syslog. Finally, we have a quality of service, love it. We have a how we can do the policing, shaping. Then we have a DSCP classification and marking. Then after that we have a NVAR and the congestion management and the avoidance, right? Sorry. So we have a complete things in the QS part. Then we have our network services like FHRP, HSRP and VRP. Here we don't have a GLBP protocol. We'll also talk about the GLBP. Of course, I never seen that in the production network, right? And I never encounter in the exam as well. But you never know, right? Being a CCIE, you should know that the GLBP as well. Then we have a NTP protocol. Then we have a DSCP on the Cisco devices, how we can do the DSCP for the IPv4 and the IPv6 as well. Then we have a NAT operation, right, where we can do the network address translation like a static NAT, dynamic NAT, and the VRF aware, software infrastructure as well. Once we have done this part, then we have a IPSLA that's we're going to talk about in the static routing. Then how we can perform the tracking and those things. The most important topic for the production perspective, right, the span part, right? Trust me, right, I've seen that a lot of people, right, who is working in the production, right, who is always unaware of this part, right, because they don't know how to configure this part and how you can deploy the span and an R span as well. And of course, the conditional debug, that's gonna help you in the production as well, right? So it's never a recommendation to do the debugging, right? That's a bad thing. It's hit the CPU, right? So you can enable the conditional debugging so that only for the particular protocol, particular IP address, you can enable the debugging. Now the last, but we have a most amazing topic, that's automation, right? So automation, you can see that we have how we can perform the data representation in the multiple format like a WAML, JSON, right? Automation and scripting right now. And finally, we have a API, like how we can perform the monitoring for the endpoints and configure for the endpoints. How we can deploy and configure the gRPC, right? So these are the parts of the automation we have it. Now let me tell you that about the automation, right? So in this training, what happened in CCIE Hub? So automation, we do the separate training, right? It's included in the CCIE Enterprise, but we do the separate training. So let's example you as you enroll in the CCIE Enterprise in CCIE Hub. Then what happened? You will have a separate training for the automation that's going to include your Python and Ansible both. I think so that session is almost 40 hours, right? So this is the entire syllabus we have. Now let me tell you that this complete syllabus, right? How we are dividing it. So we divide the syllabus into the 3 sections. right? We have a L2, we have a L3, and we have a not three, so sorry, fourth section. We have a SDN, and then we have a automation, right? So module 1 we can call it, module 2 we can call it, module 3 we can call it, and the module 4 we can call it. So in the module 1 we'll talk about the complete layer 2, right? Module 2 we are completely the layer 3 where we talk about the routing protocols, the MPLS L3 VPN and the QS and the multicasting. Module 3 is SDN solution. We're going to talk about the SD-WAN and SD-access, and the module 4 that's we have a separate automation for the Python and Ansible. Now this entire, see, if you see the blueprint, you have seen that, right? Lot of topics was missing, and as I mentioned that these topics is for the exam perspective, not for the interview and the production as well, right? So we in the training we are doing the more topics apart from this one. For example, we are going to talk about the IS protocol as well, right? Because I personally feel that when you go for the interview, if the company is running with IS, they can ask you the ISS protocol as well. Okay. Then we have a GLBP protocol, EHRP over the top. I love this topic of the EHRP protocol. That's we discussed about. A lot of new things, a lot of older things also we are going to cover in this training. This training, the CCIE Enterprise, right? This entire training will take the almost 6 to 7 months, right? It's depend on the students and the flow as well. Normally it's going to happen the weekdays, Monday to Thursday. Timing will be accordingly, right? Depend on the students, and we have a weekend as well, Saturday, Sunday. So in the weekdays we normally do the 1.5 hours of the session, and the weekend we do the normally 2 to 3 hours of the session. So it's take the almost 6 to 7 months of the session, right? So this training is gonna give you the entire knowledge, and trust me, what are the topics you have seen that, right? All these topics are the theory plus lab oriented, right? So let's example, if I teach the OSPF protocol, then we'll do the lab of this one as well. So I hope this video is very, very informative to you. If you have any questions, please put the questions in the comment box. Thank you.